Hello, I'm Peter Okwacha. Welcome to Focus on Africa. Our top stories. A fourth case of Ebola is confirmed in Goma in eastern DRC, a region where armed conflict is posing an extra challenge to fighting the disease.
Living right outside a big hospital and next to a center set aside for suspected cases of Ebola is nowhere near safe for them. The conditions here are just perfect for an explosion of disease.
Plans to shut down 3 of Libya's largest detention centers raises fears that migrants will be put more at risk of trafficking. Ethiopia's prime minister justifies the government's internet shutdown, saying it is to save lives. Also on the program, bodybuilding on a budget. The makeshift muscle factories gaining strength in Ghana. And in sport, Stuart Baxter becomes the 9th coach to leave his job following the Africa Cup of Nations finals. Thanks for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. A fourth case of Ebola has been confirmed in the eastern DR Congo's city of Goma. The new case is the wife of a man who died of the virus earlier. Nearly 200 contacts of the man have been tracked. This particular outbreak is proving to be the most complex ever. Instability, a mistrustful population, and dozens of armed groups have complicated the picture. The BBC's senior Africa correspondent, Anne Soy, travelled to the city of Bunia, where she found a growing displacement crisis is creating an additional challenge.
Thousands on the move in the DRC's northeastern province of Ituri, taking what they can as they flee. They've lost homes, food, and their loved ones. 49 bodies were recovered in this village alone when a rival ethnic community attacked in June.
This was once a big village, the village of Logo. And see what remains. That's these burnt-out huts. The people have all fled. They've been coming back during the day to harvest their crop. And they tell me that they're determined to return here, even though there's every evidence of the massacre they went through with a big graveyard just as you enter the village.
This is where most end up, in camps that have sprung up across the province. They are farmers who are about to harvest their crops, but now they are forced to rely on donations.
I lost my husband and 2 children. We ran and hid in the forest until soldiers came to rescue us.
The UN has its biggest peacekeeping force here, trying to pacify a region that has known no peace for decades. The conflict in Ituri just got worse, with automatic weapons now replacing machetes.
We want security. The government should confiscate the guns the attackers have. Those who want to join the army should do so. They should leave us to go back to our land, to build our homes and farm.
More than 300,000 people have been displaced. This grandmother shares this small tent with her 10 orphaned grandchildren.
We sleep on the floor. We have nothing. The food isn't good. Look at this skin disease I've contracted.
And each day, there are more new arrivals. It's getting dangerously overcrowded.
These people may be relatively safer now from physical violence, but living right outside a big hospital and next to a center set aside for suspected cases of Ebola is nowhere near safe for them. The conditions here are just perfect for an explosion of disease.
But they cannot return to their villages just yet. This has been described as a scorched earth attack, a message to the displaced that they are not welcome back. And those who attempted to rebuild were hit again. Anne Soy, BBC News, Bunia.
Well, neighboring Uganda has started a trial of the Ebola vaccine, which will last 2 years in the country's western district of Mbarara. Uganda has already had to deal with 3 cases of Ebola which surfaced in Kasese district in June after 3 infected travellers crossed the border together from the DRC. The BBC's Patience Atuare now reports on efforts to make sure this doesn't happen again.
These health workers are trying to trace the last 9 people who may have come into contact with a Congolese fish trader here over 2 weeks ago. The 22-year-old woman vomited 4 times in the market and later died of Ebola back in the DRC. It is a difficult task as not everyone is fully aware of the risks.
So you have to explain, because these people are having different questions, and you have to explain that you're protecting them, not actually giving them the Ebola virus.
This market at the Uganda-DRC border is a major trading area where people from both countries mix closely. More than 100 fish traders, workmen and money changers suspected to have come into contact with the woman have been vaccinated since that incident. During flea market days, the job is even tougher.
On market day, over 20,000 people crossed through here from the DRC into Uganda, and everyone has to be screened for Ebola.
Vaccination of these soldiers who keep security along the borderline has been another measure Uganda has taken to keep Ebola outside of its borders. Over 6,000 healthcare personnel and people from other government departments have been vaccinated since November last year. The general population is not deemed at risk for now, so there have been no mass vaccinations.
We know how fatal Ebola can be. We've had our own experiences before. The very first incident, we lost over 200 people. In northern Uganda, we also lost several health workers in one of the districts in western Uganda where we had an Ebola outbreak. So over the years, we have actually built our own capacity in dealing with these diseases, viral hemorrhagic fevers. So we are taking these steps because we want to nib any case that we get in time.
The biggest challenge are such village footpaths. The communities on either side of the border share resources. The threat of Ebola crossing from the DRC and into Uganda is always present.
21 temporary screening points like this one have now been set up to cover as many unofficial border crossings as possible. But a huge part of the borderline remains unmanned. So, as Ebola cases start to appear closer and closer to the border, it may be a matter of when and not if the next Ebola case will be reported in Uganda. Patience Atuare, BBC News, Western Uganda.
Let's take a look at other stories making the headlines across Africa now. The Tanzanian investigative journalist Eric Kabendera, who was arrested on Monday, is to be charged with sedition, his lawyer has said. The police first questioned Mr. Kabendera over his citizenship, even though he holds a Tanzanian passport. He has now been passed over to the cybercrime unit for interrogation. Ugandan activist and academic Stella Nyanzi has been sentenced to 18 months in prison for posting comments on Facebook criticizing President Yoweri Museveni. Activists have condemned Ms. Nyanzi's conviction for cyber harassment, saying it undermined Uganda's commitment to freedom of expression. She was acquitted on a second charge of offensive communication. And a Nigerian televangelist who is facing rape and human trafficking charges in a court in Port Elizabeth in South Africa remains a prohibited person in the country after losing an appeal. Timothy Omotosho, who is the founder of the South Africa-based Jesus Dominion International Church, was told on Thursday that he remains an illegal resident in the country. Libya is planning to shut down 3 of its biggest immigration centers. Last month, the United Nations called for the dismantling of all detention centers for refugees in Libya, saying the facilities were not fit to house migrants. But organizations that monitor the situation in Libya fear the closures may lead to even more overcrowding in the remaining centers. They also fear the possibility of many more migrants being left in the hands of traffickers. Well, we're now joined by UNHCR spokesperson Tariq Argaz. Tariq, why does the UN support this move to close the centers?
So UNHCR has long been advocating for the closure of detention centers in Libya, and we are following up closely on this initiative of shutting 3 detention centers, including Tajura Detention Center that was hit by an airstrike early last month. You may remember that this detention center, 50 people died in this airstrike and 130 were injured. So we are calling for an orderly release of all refugees in detention centers because there are enough reports that state that the conditions in these detention centers are very dire. And also, as UNHCR is by principle against detention of refugees, because a refugee is someone that's fleeing from persecution in its country or from a war and is seeking a safe place and seeking international protection. And therefore, it should not be penalized.
Tariq, if I may just jump in, what happens to them once they are released from these detention centers?
UNHCR has an evacuation program in place. And so far, since this program started, we have evacuated out of Libya over 4,000 vulnerable refugees to safer places. We also have an urban program that provides assistance to the refugees that are living in the urban setting and in the urban context. We can provide them with cash assistance, with medical and also psychosocial support.
Some would argue that maybe it's better for the UN to negotiate with these different camps that are holding these refugees to go in there and help them while they're in these detention camps.
UNHCR is, as I said, is against the detention of refugees, but by principle and by a humanitarian principle, we have to be where refugees are need our assistance. So we do provide assistance, life-saving assistance in detention centers, but we don't support the detention of refugees, and therefore they must be freed. And we can then, therefore, assist them while in the urban community, or also the most vulnerable can be evacuated out of Libya.
And just very briefly, Tariq, very briefly, I know that it's just 3 that have been announced will be closed. Are you calling for all other detention centers within the Libyan territory to be shut down as well?
Absolutely. We are calling on the closure of all detention centers. We are talking about 19 active detention centers run by the Libyan authorities. We're not talking here about smuggling camps. That's a total other subject. We are calling on the closure of all the detention centers run by the Ministry of Interior. And we can provide assistance to the ministry in this closure, conditional on the respect of the human rights and guaranteeing the protection.
All right, Tariq Argaz from the UNHCR. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on Focus on Africa. And you're watching Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Peter Okwoche. Still to come, one of these 2 players will be playing in front of more than 80,000 fans this weekend, and one of them won't. Ramzan will be here to tell us who later. That's in sports. I'm Peter Okwoche. The top story this hour. Health workers have confirmed a 4th case of Ebola in the city of Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has justified the government's right to shut down the internet, saying it is to quell potential violence and prevent cheating in national school examinations. The blackout has been in place since an attempted coup in June. Since Abiy Ahmed became Prime Minister in April 2018, the country has shut down the internet at least 4 times. That has had an impact on the economy. For every day the internet is blocked, NetBlocks, a digital rights group, estimates Ethiopia loses over $4.5 million. It's also a blow to the nation's fast-emerging tech scene known as Sheba Valley. At least 22 African states have partially or fully blocked the internet in the past 5 years, blaming civil and political unrest. Well, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who has often been hailed as a reformist for arguing for greater protection of freedom of information and expression, is now defending his decision to restrict those rights.
Countries with similar problems did the same thing. They did it in Sudan, in Egypt, and in India. The internet is not water. The internet is not air. The internet is important technology that brings technological convergence, that eases communication and facilitates trade when we use it properly. However, if we use it as a tool for revolution, to incite others to kill and burn, it will be shut down not only for a week, but indefinitely.
Now, in certain parts of the Igbo culture in eastern Nigeria, a woman can marry a wife, either for herself or for her dead son. In most cases, the idea is that the woman will have children with a close relative in order to continue the family line. Well, when Felicia Oji's son died, she was determined to find a wife for him. Here's her story.
My wife and I, we live peacefully. We don't fight at all. My name is Felicia Orji, but my nickname is Waya.
Felicia's son, Ikemefuna, died before he'd married or had children. Felicia wanted to continue her son's family lineage.
My late husband said, after my son's death, a wife must be found for him. My family had a meeting to plan the process. Then we agreed the price for the bride, fulfilled our marriage duties, and then Chinyere came to our home.
My name is Mrs. Chinyere Ikemefuna Oji. I'm Ikemefuna's wife.
Chinyere married her husband after his death.
There is nothing wrong with it. I personally agreed to the arrangement. September this year will make it 12 years. It was in 2007.
We go to the market together, buy food, cook, and eat together.
In the morning, before they awake, I sweep the compound and prepare the breakfast. After eating with the family, I leave for work where I go to teach.
Our relationship has been good since she moved in.
I am happy here and the family take care of me. I am very sad when I hear about Ikemefuna's death, but life goes on.
Chinyere is now a mother to 3 children. Their father is an agreed member of Ikemefuna's extended family.
What gives me joy is that despite the fact that my son died abroad, God provided a good wife for him. Chinyere's children keep me company now that mine moved on.
You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. It's now time for some sports. And Ramzan, another post-Nations Cup resignation.
Another one bites the dust. This time it's South Africa. And that's right, South Africa coach Stuart Baxter has resigned. It was his second spell in charge of Bafana Bafana and comes just weeks after he led the team to the quarter-finals of the Africa Cup of Nations. But Africa football expert Mark Gleeson isn't surprised by Baxter's resignation.
I'm not at all surprised that Stuart Baxter has stepped down. You could see the frustration building over the last couple of years of the job. He had a lot of problems in terms of getting an assistant coach. He had a lot of problems around the logistics ahead of the Nations Cup. South Africa didn't play any friendlies, for example, in preparation for Egypt. I think that all built up, and I think he felt that things were not going to change at the South African Football Association going into the new cycle, and therefore it would be better for him to step down. I think you also consider that times are fairly tough these days for South African football. The economy is a bit strained in this country. There's not the steady list of sponsors beating down the door of the Football Association to sponsor the team as there was maybe 10, 20 years ago when the side was so successful. So it's a lot tougher and they are really struggling for money.
Now, 2 men who met in that Nations Cup opener in front of 75,000 in Cairo are set for different experiences this weekend. Egypt striker Mo Salah is set to play in front of a huge crowd at Wembley when Liverpool take on Manchester City in the Community Shield, while Zimbabwe's Alex Madumu could be playing for Welsh semi-professional side Cefn Druids in a friendly in front of a few hundred if he's lucky. Here's the Zimbabwean talking to BBC World Football's Manny Jasmi.
Mo Salah was quite literally 10 yards away from me and I just couldn't believe it. I didn't know whether to look at him and be very angry or look at him and be like, hi Mo, can I get an autograph? But, you know, I was very professional about it, thank God. Coming out to 73, maybe 75,000 was, again, a very daunting moment because we must have had about 100, if so, Zimbabwean fans there. So they were making a lot of noise, but of course the Egypt fans were making quite a lot more noise. As soon as the final whistle went, I was quite literally next to him, and I've asked for his top, and he said, "Yeah, you can get it inside."
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, so it was it was about 4 or 5 players rushing over to him, so I got it done early doors. Someone like me to get a top, you know, like Mo Salah's is, it's amazing.
What a souvenir, eh? And now Stephanie Frappart will become the first woman to referee a major men's European match when she takes charge of the UEFA Super Cup final between Liverpool and Chelsea later this month. Frappart will lead a team that also includes 2 female assistant referees when the Champions League winners face the Europa League holders in Istanbul. She also refereed July's Women's World Cup final in Lyon. Now, just a quick transfer update, in fact, and Everton are closing in on a deal for Mainz midfielder Jean-Philippe Baman. The Ivory Coast international is being lined up as a replacement for the departed Idrissa Gueye, with the report suggesting he could cost around $33 million. And we've just heard that Manchester United are close to signing Leicester defender Harry Maguire for, wait for it, $97 million. $97 million. I thought Pepe was expensive yesterday. That's nothing. It's a drop in the ocean.
You're going to bring that up. It's football transfer gone mad.
It has completely.
Absolutely.
It has.
Thank you very much, Ramzan. Thank you. Now, what do you do if you want to work out but don't have the cash to splash on an expensive gym membership? Build your own, of course. Across Africa, so-called backyard gyms have become a popular and cost-effective way for fitness fanatics to get in shape. Emmeline Nsingi-Nkosi reports from Ghana on pumping iron on a budget.
Concrete blocks and makeshift benches may not be the first thing that comes to mind when thinking of bodybuilding. However, Ghana's backyard gyms are gaining momentum, breeding a new pack of athletes hungry to take their training to the next level. Whilst their following may be relatively small, easy access and low cost has seen a growing demand for these makeshift muscle factories. One gym that has seen some of Ghana's most famed bodybuilders is Conan Gym, based in the eastern region of Ghana in Akrapong.
I started the 80s because I like exercise and gym. I go some place and I saw how to do bench and dumbbells. These dumbbells, I use cement, sand and gravels. I make plastic mold and I put it inside to make these dumbbells.
These gyms bring in a variety of individuals from all ages with one goal in mind, to be the best version of themselves.
I don't think age is a matter. For instance, I can skip 1 hour non-stop. I want to get to be the oldest person there. I want to be 150 years before I die.
These gyms come with their own challenges.
Some of the challenges about this type of gyms is, first, you are limited when it comes to equipment. For instance, it's really difficult to train like your calves in a gym like this because you don't have any equipment for it. And the other challenge is the issue of safety. It requires you to be more careful, to be more intuitive to what you're doing because you can easily get hurt.
Backyard gyms have become a cost-effective way for bodybuilders and amateurs alike to keep fit, and there seems no sign of it slowing down. These will continue to keep Ghanaians fit for years to come.
Now, don't forget you can catch up with me and some of the team on Twitter. I am at Okwoche. But from me, Peter Okwoche, and the rest of the Focus on Africa team, thanks for staying with us this week. See you again very soon. Goodbye.